okay, let's just jump right into this thing. Let's just hit the folks over the head with what we know have been cultured from air that has been heavily sprayed to date.
They have various types of chemistries that in fact are what they call high altitude reflectants, and they actually refract light as well as reflect it. If you see it, 4 to 6 hours you're going to be breathing that and eating that. It does a lot of damage in the process. Some of these, in fact, have various types of chemicals in them that have crystalline natures to them, in fact, disrupt the alveoli and the bronchioles extremely, to the point where it actually does cutting at the microscopic level, let alone the toxic entity that comes from that when it touches water. For instance, some of the barium compounds, if they've not reacted in the atmosphere with water and formed the hydroxide, it does it in your lungs.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, it does it in your lungs because it scavenges oxygen. So, in fact, you have this metallic taste in your mouth and this stuff that's just like you've been breathing dust or something. Well,
right.
I'm sorry, but that's exactly what you just went through.
Right.
And it happens just 6 to 8 hours or after. They're going to modify the weather somewhere.
Chemtrails are now actually in, I think it's an elementary school textbook. They've actually put chemtrails in the book and described it as a means of slowing the greenhouse warming effect of global warming. Aerosol spraying as a possible life-saving technology in terms of slowing global warming. Well, gee, chemtrails are probably okay. They're just up there trying to slow down global warming, and we understand they've been quiet about it, but that's okay because they're trying to look out for us.
What's going on with chemtrails right now is totally illegal in so many ways, even down to the micron size.
The aerosol spraying continues. We've all been affected by it. People have died from it, and it is ongoing.
It has been ferociously destroying ozone via the same ionization process which makes its effects visible to ground-based and civilian weather radar. Thus, every time this black technology has been used and or tested over the past year or so, it has also opened up a whopping ozone hole directly above the installation site. The deeply increasing respiratory infections are simply an unwanted side effect of the ozone repairing agents being used. Hospitals are turning patients away. It's epidemic all over the place. Even in Europe, by the way, epidemic proportion. We have ample evidence the U.S. government in the past has done biowarfare testing on its own people.
The cadmium spraying
right
over certain cities. Well, that's not necessarily biowarfare, but it is chemical warfare, just to see what it would do.
If this is some kind of government black program to do some serious remediation, should we be uncovering it? What do you think of the possibility that there's some kind of ozone remediation underway as one possible scenario, and that what we see falling to the ground or the chemtrails that we see visibly are sort of the fallout of that?
I've come to the conclusion that this operation is desperate.
People don't understand how serious this is.
This black operation has deemed civilian casualties on the ground as acceptable losses, that the operation itself overrides those concerns. Drawing on Freeman Dyson's work, in '79 he called for the spraying of fine particles into the atmosphere to cool the planet and protect against greenhouse warming. In 1998, this paper was written. I have it here in front of me. It outlines a similar program costing $1 billion a year, a fraction, the paper says, of the $100 billion it would cost to curtail petroleum emissions. $1 billion a year program to cool the planet by 1%. A 1% drop in temperatures is a major, major contribution to climate change. In this case, perhaps to soften the greenhouse warming, particularly when we look at the U.S. Air Force's own document, Owning the Weather, and they talk about cloud screens.
The potential for using the atmosphere as a medium and a vector, as it were, are unlimited. It's so easy. They can take 4 or 5 tanker planes, and we've seen them. They can go up and down the entire West Coast, back and forth a couple of runs, and cover it. One day, there were over 20. I don't remember how many. Over 20. It looked like Venetian blinds going from south to north, as far as I could see. And they were drifting eastward, just like Venetian blinds.
We have found Pseudomonas aeruginosa, Pseudomonas fluorescens, naturally occurring, certainly. Usually not in the concentrations we're finding them, though. We're finding streptomyces predominant in our samples, Enterobacter, a Serratia marcescens in one case.
What a nasty soup.
This has been used in biowarfare experimentation on the American public and was voluntarily retired by the U.S. military some years ago because of its toxicity. It has been found in our sample in Idaho within the last year and a half. Human white blood cells were found by a state lab in Washington. And again, a variety of other toxic molds, all capable of producing heart disease, meningitis, upper respiratory, and gastrointestinal distress. And of course, we're well aware that we are now at epidemic levels in at least 15 states, according to the CDC. They also said that 2 major components of the illness now sweeping the United States, and I will say my area right here in Canada, one component, of course, is pneumonia, extreme allergic reactions, and asthma attacks.
A lot of people, to be honest with you, say, oh, come on. Contrails, we've always had contrails. Some weather conditions cause them to linger. This is militia-like right-wing paranoia. It's just bunk. The New York Times and the Los Angeles Times, Chicago sometimes, they won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. I guess it's important that the public understand, if you too really feel that it's not normal and it's a new phenomena and it is likely causing a lot of ill effects here on the ground, whatever else it's doing, if you all agree on that, then it's a serious, serious issue.
Normal jet trails do definitely increase cloud cover and affect the weather over heavily traveled air routes over the North Atlantic and other locations. Again, the chemtrail phenomena is quite different and separate from the contrail phenomena and appears to be an emergency response to some crisis. It appears to be some kind of ecological crisis.
If our scientists know this is that catastrophic, then you can imagine there would be some sort of black program, and probably black because they wouldn't want to tell us about it, to remediate this in some way, to try and do something. Should this be public information? Should we all know about this, or is it proper they're doing it in the way they're doing it?
We're all crew members of Spaceship Earth. We're on an oasis planet surrounded by the cold irradiated vacuum of deep space, and I think if we have a crisis of this level, we all must be apprised of it. And if the fallout is literally making people sick, we have every right to be apprised of it. And I'll simply note that the catastrophe of the ozone loss is heightened because you will have, in the loss of heat-trapping ozone, a cooling of the stratosphere, and you have a heating of the lower atmosphere. You are in for some very violent weather.
Precisely.